every entity in a gCADPlus, or any CAD drawing for that matter, the entity's position is defined by a pair of coordinates, a pair of what are called Cartesian coordinates. If I select this symbol, which represents an existing tree, you can see its X position is 21 and its Y position is 24. So it's sitting 21 in the X and 24 in the Y. X runs horizontally to the right, Y goes directly up. So if we wanted to, for the sake of argument, draw a line from position 0, 0 in this drawing, let's do that. Let's draw a line from 0, 0, and we'll type in a pair of coordinates. We'll say 22, 24. That should put us 22 out in the X and 24 up in the Y. So that gets us a line from what's called the origin of the drawing close to the position of the tree. If we select the line, you can see its length is 32.55 and its angle is 47 degrees. So there are many ways of entering in distance information, and I want to run through some of these now. I'll change my drawing color to red, and I'll say I'm going to draw a line. Let's zoom in here and imagine that we're going to draw some sort of bench that's 6'5" long by 1.5 feet wide. So let's do it. We can just start at any point and we can move the bench into position later. So we can click, there's the start of our line. It's just an arbitrary position. Polar is on, which means that as I swing around, you can see I can lock into a 45-degree angle or horizontally, and it's horizontal that I want. I can click, and that what's happened there is no defined length has been given. That's just arbitrary 11 feet long. Let's erase that one and try again. No, we don't want to repeat the erase. We want to draw the line again. I'll just start here. Now remember, we want to go 6 foot 5 inches long, let's say. If I right click at this point, I get the chance to input some coordinates, either as absolute coordinates. So if I knew the precise X and Y of the end point of the line, I could use that. But I'm much more interested here in relative Cartesian coordinates. And I select those, relative being relative to my last position, which was the arbitrary start of the line. So I'll type 6.5, so we're going 6.5 feet in the X and not going up at all in the Y. So there's our red line. Now we want to come down in this direction, right click again, input the coordinate. This time we want to go down, we'll say 2.5 feet, and OK it. So there are a couple of lines that indicate maybe a bench. Now we can add extra lines in a number of different ways. What I'm going to do now is draw a line from the end point, and I'll go up 2.5 feet, but I'll use a different system. So I'll change my color and I'll draw a line, and I'll start. This time I'll use object snap or entity snap, and I'll jump to the end of that line. Now we want to go up in this direction. So I can right click, input coordinate, and I'll change from relative Cartesian coordinates to relative polar coordinates. I could use absolute ones if I knew the angle and I knew the distance. If I went absolute, I'd have to know the angle and the distance, but that would be absolute from 0, 0, and I clearly don't know those. So relative polar, I'm going to go 2.5 feet and OK, and in it goes. Now I can simply use an entity snap to snap to the end of that line. While I'm at it, I'll make a block of that. I'll create a block and we'll call it bench, and I'll OK it. I'll have it as a pick point somewhere I want it convenient as a pick point. I'll click there and I'll go OK. Now when I select that entity, can you see there's my base point or pick point, so I can move my bench under what is perhaps a shady tree. So I'll now erase that. So can you see you can draw lines using these different coordinate systems. So you need to be need to understand the difference between absolute and relative, and between polar and other entity systems. So let's draw another line, and I'll start much the same way as I did before. I want to head off in this direction. Now you can use that at sign. I can say at 6.5 and just click, and that's, in fact, what that's doing is, let me start the line command again. I'll start here. What that's doing is working with relative Cartesian coordinates. But what I also want, so you can type these in, you don't have to use the right mouse button. If you're comfortable typing, let's repeat the line, and I'll start again here, and then I'll go at the distance I want, 2.5, and the angle that I want is 90 degrees, and bang, in it goes. So can you see, you can use the pop-up little dialog box, which is this little dialog box here, to select what you want, or you can just type it directly if you know the nomenclature to use, and in the help file we've given you more information on this. So I hope that helps in understanding absolute coordinates are the x and y of this drawing from the base point of the drawing, or from 0, 0. That can be important, but more often you'll be using relative methods of entering your data. Relative Cartesian or relative polar would be by far the more common ways of inputting data, but once you get some experience with it, you can actually simply type the values.